Didn't open at all.
And we're talking about the length that it's becoming literally an odyssey for people to find a job. It's taking 6 to 9 months. That's the average. But realistically, if you're like, over 50, I've heard of some people looking for over a year at this point, right? It's a wild market, and we call it an odyssey because you're exhausted from just the idea of job search. So I hope today's event will give some ideas in terms of best practices, things you need to be doing consistently. And I think the biggest thing is the mental battle. Just as our hero in the Odyssey story had a long way home, finding your next role can be is definitely a mental battle, as well as going through the motions of doing everything. So just want to introduce our panel here today. We have Sarah Bellendaine, who's an executive advisor and coach, partners with founders, CEOs, and senior leaders whose decisions have significant impact on revenue, valuation, culture, and organizational performance. She's drawing on more than a decade of executive coaching experience and 14 plus years in HR and operations. Sarah's work helps executives sharpen judgment, strengthen leadership presence, reduce isolation with her leadership diagnostic tool. And we have also Virginia Franco, founder of Virginia Franco Resumes and a 5-time certified executive coach storyteller with over 17 years of experience helping professionals craft compelling, strategically branded, keyword-rich resumes and LinkedIn profiles. She's one of fewer of 60 writers globally who hold the prestigious NCRW and NCOPE certifications, and she's among an elite group of 25 professionals to earn the Master Resume Writer designation. She's also a creator and host of the award-winning Resume Storyteller podcast and recognized as a top career podcast by JobScan and MaxList. And finally, we have Franklin Buchanan, certified professional career coach, resume writer, and corporate facilitator with more than 15 years of experience in talent acquisition. He offers talent a unique advantage, having spent his career working with candidates as a recruiter and with the people who make hiring decisions. He specializes in building the personal brand and competitive advantage of his clients, helping today's job seekers realize their career aspirations through customized solutions. Franklin is a recognized top voice on LinkedIn for resumes and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's nice having some of you as repeat customers, and today is Sarah's first time on our panel. So thanks for joining us. So just to get the conversation started, right? People are going through these, 6-month, 12-month, 18-month job searches. It's very much a mental game. So I want to address that first, because I think that's something I'm hearing from a lot of candidates when I'm talking to them, is just the exhaustion, the dumbfoundedness of what's going on. Am I doing everything right, or what do I need to be doing? So, and also, how do we avoid this burnout that's really hitting them from applying? The guy yesterday I talked to told me he applied to 1,700 jobs. I'm like, holy smokes, what do we do?
Take a big, deep breath off of 1,700 jobs and probably get yourself a new keyboard from having to upload your resume and then re-enter all of that same information into the system. I think to the point on the Odyssey that you made, John, not only is it an Odyssey because it is taking longer, and there's a million reasons why, but there's also the element of shell shock, because if you switch jobs in 2021 or 2022, then that was almost instant. I mean, the process could take a week. I had clients that got calls on Monday and they had offers by Friday back then. And now it's you submit on a Monday and you might hear back in 3 weeks. I think to the point of 1,700 applications, especially for executive level clients, I don't know that online applications are going to be that much of an effective tool right now versus using your online presence to attract a recruiter to you and using your network to open doors for you.
Well, I agree with that. It's people that were job searching 21 to 23. It's a 180. I get why people have whiplash. And then those that weren't, a lot of times they moved up to where they were because of their reputation, their bosses, all of that. And then they get to a point where they're the bosses. And so it is harder. And I agree with you that applying online, especially as a sole point of entry, it's really tough even for entry level folks. It's exceptionally tough when they're older. I have always thought of job search as a journey, even pre Odyssey, and there's always places where things can break down. And so I've found it helpful to sort of figure out where are things going south. Am I getting past the first interview? Am I getting to the last interview? Is my resume not even getting callbacks? It's sort of pinpointing where that bottleneck is could go a long way towards really focusing your efforts, because otherwise you're just sort of throwing spaghetti against a lot of single sticks.
And it's really hard with such a long slog, such a long, long process to maintain that mindset of creativity and problem solving and puzzle solving, because when you're so stressed all the time and you're trying and trying and trying and failing, or it seems that you're failing and failing, it is so hard to maintain a mindset of possibility and maintain that capacity to persist, that resilience that will keep you going through. And there are so many great ways that are easy to do and don't cost anything and don't take a lot of time that are so helpful.
Everyone kind of, you know, approaches the mental game differently when it comes to like a long search. Because I know for me, I've had 4 layoffs that I've had to deal with. So I've had this same issue. And for me, it was, finding something to find joy every day in terms of what you can do, which is free, things that are free, right? Going camping was something I did a lot of when I was unemployed, right? Going to the gym a lot because, when you get those endorphins from working out, it's just helpful to clear your head instead of being staring at a screen all day that seems to be rejecting you day after day with bad, replies and so on. And from what I've heard from everybody, it seems that like the online application thing, there's so much spam of AI bots applying for roles, and it's something also that feels like it's out of your control. So I think with everybody, when you're doing a search, it's like you want to have to feel like you're in control in a sense, because when you're applying into some black box that like you don't know what's happening in there, you can blame the ATS, you can blame all sorts of different things, but really you have no control in that space. So I think what we want to try to give people is some tools of how can you try to feel a little bit in control of what you're doing in terms of like your daily routine. So what would you recommend in terms of, let's say you have an 8-hour day or 6-hour day you want to spend in job search activities? How would you break that 6-hour day down to not go crazy? What would be a good playbook, let's say?
I think
Well,
starting the night. Well, go ahead, Virginia. Ladies
I
first.
would I, I would spend 5% applying on them and 30% doing your research to figure out, get real clear on what exactly you want to do, the kinds of companies where you want to do it, studying the marketplace to see where the money is, who's hiring and what companies. Maybe it's mid-sized versus Fortune 500, but getting really clear, spending 30% of your time on that, 30% of your time on the connecting with people, making lists of who you know, who you don't know, who you want to know, and getting those conversations going. And then there's an additional 30% that to me that's where you spend your time on things that allow you to feel good about yourself. And maybe it's using your skills. Just because you lost your job doesn't mean you lost your ability, what you're good at. So there are opportunities to volunteer. There's plenty of ways to give back using your skills, or using a skill maybe you wanted to test out that, you're helping others, but it serves as a reminder that what you bring to the table does offer value.
I think those are some awesome, awesome points. And I want to build on those. With the online applications, I always tell my clients you've got to reset your expectations on what those things are. In this market right now, if an employer wants A, B, and C, they will get it. And if you don't have A, B, or C, then I'm not going to tell you not to apply. I'm just going to say, measure your expectations on those applications. And I agree. I think 3-4% of your time in a given day, that's a good time to do it. And make sure you're timing your applications right. Try to get them in early. But the success of your day in the slog or the odyssey of the job search starts, I think, the night before. And if you can figure out, all right, what are 3 or 4 things that I can accomplish today? Because I've never been a big list guy, or I never was until I became a list guy. And just the feeling of checking something off the list, someone to reach out to. Virginia, you mentioned volunteering in the community. That's a great way to.
With all the scribbles, I love being able to cross things off.
Right there with you.
Yeah.
I should have pulled the list up with my kids' drawings on it. But write it down and understand as you're putting your list together the night before that every day your energy level is different. And it's not about, when I used to coach basketball, I always told my players, I don't ever want 110% and I don't ever want 90%. I want 100% of what you have in any given day. If you're doing 90%, you're not doing enough. If you're doing 110%, you're doing too much. Either way, you're going to mess something up. I want 100% of the energy that you have in that day, in that moment. And so accept that some days you're going to do more and accept that some days you're going to do less based on the energy that you possess. And if you can maintain that energy balance, that's a good way to mitigate. I'm not going to say avoid, but mitigate some of the burnout that we've been talking about.
Another thing that can be helpful is, I mean, John mentioned reduce the time on screens, but sometimes screens can be really helpful in getting your brain back into a creative problem solving mode and a strategic thinking mode, not RPG games or first person shooter necessarily, but like Tetris, like Legend of Zelda. Those have some correlations to helping vets with PTSD and getting them back into an active state instead of being stuck in a past moment. So whatever maintains that creativity, those moments of joy, deliberately seek them out and deliberately give yourself an opportunity to solve puzzles and be creative. Write the book that you've been putting off. Think about not just the goal that you want to accomplish in getting the job, but what's the goal beyond the goal? Why do you want that? What other possibilities are there that are aligned with who you are now or who you want to be in the future? Maybe it's time to look beyond the present situation and start aligning some factors for the future. Like, what do you want in 5 years? And it might seem impossible and really stupid to start trying to plan for 5 years out when this is a present moment of crisis. But if you're thinking ahead that far, you can reverse engineer lots of paths forward to those possibilities.
One thing that came up from quite a few candidates is, what do I do how does it look on my LinkedIn if I'm out of work for 6 months or a year or so on? Or how's that going to look that I've been out of market or out of a role? They're worried that it's going to make them look bad, or employers they're not going to feel like they're, a hot commodity, let's say. How do you approach that in terms of like what you show on your LinkedIn versus on your resume? What should you be doing to sort of, mitigate that? Or is that just unfounded, right?
And to me, you need to own it. And I think there's enough people that have mad respect for people that take out jobs and um, are are doing what needs to be done to make ends meet. In terms of how you position that on your LinkedIn, it depends on how long it's been since you last work. It depends on if you were volunteering in any capacity that allows you to use your skills. So there's some other variables there that impact search, but going face to face with someone else, yeah.
There's no getting around it. Like, you can't hide from it. And if there's one thing I think that people have destigmatized, or recruiters have destigmatized somewhat, is a layoff in the career, right? Because I think most people get it in the job market today, and it's how much more difficult it is. I agree with Virginia on owning it. And I think I was actually having this conversation with a client earlier today on should we fill his gap on his resume and LinkedIn. And I think it depends on what you're doing. If you're using your skills, like he's teaching chemistry to students, and that's a relevant skill. He's designing landscape. I think he's an engineer. So it makes a lot of sense for us to kind of add that at this point. If it's relevant, I like putting it on there, but at the end of the day, it's going to come out in the wash, I think, in a conversation on the very front end of an interview.
I do think it's important to point out that it seems that the algorithm has not changed in terms of dimming people when it sees an end date on a role, and the career break option on LinkedIn doesn't get recognized on LinkedIn Recruiter. So whatever you can do to sort of to show something current will help you in terms of how high up you sell in search.
Well, there's also the difference between what you're saying on your LinkedIn resume and what you're posting and what you're actually doing. If, to your point, Virginia, somebody's already out there volunteering, they can post about that and how meaningful it was. If they're writing a book, they can write about their writing process and the lessons that they're taking from all of their experience, show versus tell. And not only will that present them as relevant and current and still have a lot to offer, but that's still a way to keep your own skills sharp and keep that creative muscle working.
And even if you're not a writer, you can comment um, on, you can use LinkedIn search filters to find people that are speaking about the industries or the roles that you're interested in. And commenting requires 2 sentences, but add some value is a great way to get conversations going, and it lets you test your voice and get comfortable with it before maybe you start doing your own posts.
So another thing that has come up, and one of our members here is just messaging about it, saying, taking the survival job, sometimes you got to do that because obviously not everyone has savings in the bank, and especially in this economy where blueberries are $13. Don't get me started. So sometimes you got to take the survival job, right? And his question or sort of comment is, if I do that, I'm now spending 50 hours a week doing the survival job. I'm not doing my job search. So how do you balance doing a consistent job search while also trying to keep the lights on, which many of us have to do when we're unemployed, right? So what do you recommend for that in terms of
For me, it's finding
strategy?
the pockets of time where we do have availability. You can devote 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night to commenting on LinkedIn. You can schedule 2 coffee chats around work or some sort of, an informational kind of interview. It could be Zoom, it could be in person. But when you get clear on exactly what you want to do, where you want to do it, who you want to speak with, you don't need as much time as it takes to apply to some engineering jobs.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like when you're not working and you got 8 to 10 hours in a day to look for a job, that is a recipe for a very inefficient. It can be a recipe for a very inefficient job search. When you are working 40, 50 hours a week, even if it's just a bridge job to pay your bills, it limits your time and it forces you to become more intentional about what you're doing versus because it's easy to jump down that online rabbit hole because that it's busy work and it feels productive. And even though it's not, whereas if you only got 20 minutes and at breakfast with the kids, and then, all right, I got time to send 2 emails out. You're going to be very intentional about A, what you say, and B, who you say it to.
The idea of focusing on what you actually can accomplish. Like, I have 15 minutes. What can I accomplish? Anybody who's ever been to a CrossFit box will have a new understanding of what you can accomplish in 15 minutes. But right to your point, Franklin, can I send 2 emails right now? Yes or no? Okay, I can send 2 emails. I'm waiting for my kid to come down the stairs. Yep, I can send that one follow-up. I can comment on that one post. And each one of those is a win. Track the wins. Track what you do that moves the needle, however tiny amount, forward.
And also to mention too, I think Virginia was mentioning about spending 30% of the time sort of researching companies and roles and so on. I mean, with AI, like I think you're able to cut that down substantially, right? Like you can have Claude, use a free version of Claude and have it do research on companies in your niche. You can use scraping tools and Indeed and LinkedIn to find jobs and so on. I mean, there's ways to do it where you can, if you're tech savvy, you can definitely be a little bit better at pulling together the companies you want to be targeting and so on. Even doing a free trial of Sales Navigator is something I recommend to a lot of people, is like try Sales Navigator for a month for free. I think they offer it. Building an account list, then building a persona of people you want to talk to, and then creating a lead list from that account list of those people in the persona. Now you have a list of exactly who you want to be talking to in your niche. It takes literally 10 minutes, you can do it. So especially for people that are in sales leadership that are looking for work, it's like, this is a sales job. This is your funnel, right? Think of your funnel. And I think if you're working as an Uber driver or working at McDonald's and you're like, I need to go work, just to pay bills. Well, you can apply for jobs even at midnight, right? So what has to be done during the day? I think that's maybe the networking piece. So what can we give for advice for people that are like, okay, I got an hour on my lunch to network. Where's my time best spent in my job search right now? I have a lunch hour every day that I can do. What would you say would be, if you had 1 hour, what would be this is what I would do if I had an hour to do my job search today?
So if I wasn't clear on the kinds of opportunities I wanted, what I would do is go to AI. I had a client a couple of weeks back, and she's like, I wanted you, she was a CHRO, and she wanted a role with it, to be with a particular culture, and she didn't know where to start. So we put in, I don't remember which LLM we used, but we put in what companies have this culture and are willing to invest in blah, blah, blah. We got a list of 5 companies. And from there, she reverse engineered to figure out, do I know anyone there? Do I know anyone who knows anyone there? And we put together her list. This all took an hour. And then she was ready with that list to go to people and say, these are the kinds of companies that I am looking to work at. Do you know anyone there? And people would say, well, I don't know anyone at this one, but that reminds me that I know someone with somewhere else. To just doing that research so that you do have more than an hour, that you could go with the ground running.
I had an hour. I used the first hour in the week to try to schedule as many lunch conversations as I could. And then, 30, 45 minutes, have those conversations with the end goal in mind with every contact that you have. Because there's an old adage out there, it's all about who you know, which I think is not accurate. It's all about who knows you, and who knows you. That's who I would start my job search with, the people that know me somewhat professionally. Because if I don't know what's next, they're good people to bounce ideas off of. If I do know what's next, then all right, let's focus on who they might be able to get me in front of.
Right. Looking at your network as chess pieces on a board. What can you move? What can you leverage? What can get you from this person to that person, so that it's something you're approaching strategically, not scattershot.
And I feel like sometimes people, when they're thinking of their network, they're only thinking about these people that they know really well. And I encourage people to think beyond that. Who are vendors that you've worked with, consultants that are in the business? Those people have their fingers in lots of different pies in different companies, and they might be really well situated to know who's hiring and who's not in your industry.
What would you say though for people that are saying, well, I've tried networking and I'm not having results, and I know a lot of people have said to me, well, I've messaged people in my network and no one responds back. Everyone's just ghosting me. So I'm like, is it their approach not good? Is it just people are not active on LinkedIn, which it is a problem, I think, as well. I think only 20% of people are posting every 90 days or something. So what I told them was, well, it could be that they're not online. Like, a lot of people only use LinkedIn when they're out of work. That's a big amount of people, right? But maybe also your approach. So how would you say it's best to approach people that are, let's say, in your network, you don't know that well? And I mean, the worst thing I think is just to say, hey, do you have a job, or can you get me a job? That's the worst. So how would you approach that? How do you add value and get that network going? I think a lot of people struggle with that. They're like, I don't know what to say. It's awkward. How do I do it?
It is.
At their activity. I would look at their activity to see if they're on LinkedIn. If not, try another way of communications.
Right. Sales Navigator, you can look at your first person connections and filter by how recently they were on and active.
I don't even think you need Sales Navigator to do it. I think you can do it just plain old LinkedIn Premium.
Yeah.
And I agree with all that, because most people, I don't think, to John, to your point, I don't think if people aren't looking for work, they're not on LinkedIn unless they're actively selling something they want people to buy. Like I'm on LinkedIn because people buy career coaching and resume writing services from me. And so I think if you're starting your job search with messaging people on LinkedIn, that's not a recipe for success because your level of response is going to be a lot lower. If they're not in your phone, I think that the people that are in your phone, that's who you start with. And because they're the ones that are likely going to be able to get you in front of that person that you kind of know. I think about all the recruiters that I trained. I couldn't name them all. If one of them reached out to me that I haven't talked to in 5 years, yeah, I'd take the call for sure. That's just who I am, but not, I think most people know, oh, well, who's that again? Were they in that training class? I'll get back to them later. And then your LinkedIn box is then full of spam, but then you forget. So I think starting small with trusted connections is what leads to those second level connections.
And lead with curiosity. What are they doing now? What are their interests? What are they eyeing for their next move? Who do you know that might be a great connection for them? And what would be the best way to leverage your network to help them?
Yes,
Trust.
because when you lead off with, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," that is not a statement in the mind of the listener. That is a request for help. And even most people don't know how to help you find a job. All they do in that situation is say, "Sarah, yeah, I'd love to help. Can you send me your resume?" Then you send the resume over, and then there it sits in their inbox because they don't know what to do with it unless by happenstance something comes across their desk. So you have to change that conversation from "help me find a job" to curiosity. Or if you really want to make it about you, okay, hey, I'm in a job search, Sarah. You and I worked together couple years ago. I'd like to get your perspective on what my weaknesses were.
Mhm.
That's a
Now,
great,
that's a specific ask.
and it's something that can be done in the call, immediate response to the email. It doesn't need to sit in somebody's inbox, whether it's LinkedIn or otherwise, and languish or be forgotten or get dropped down the list of overwhelm. If it's, hey, do you remember working with me? What was memorable? Do you have any feedback for what I could do better or differently? I'm really doing some inner work right now, just basically doing my own 360 and would love your perspective.
I feel like people also like to share intel. So if you are targeting work at a particular company and you know someone who used to work there, it is in the end just say, can you tell me what it was like working there? And LinkedIn filters are incredible for figuring out who those people are. You can, you go to your connections and the people that have their connections open, you can see who's second, third connections. You can reach out and say, hey, I saw that you're connected to this person. Do you know them well enough that maybe you could do an introduction for you? And those are small, easy asks that people don't have taken immediate action or.
Small asks often equal big wins.
Yeah, and I think looking also to see who's connected with, mutual connections, right? To get a warm intro to a company, they may know someone there. I mean, that's usually the easiest ask, I think, is getting the warm intro, because you're like, oh, you're connected with Sam over at XYZ Corp. Do you know them well? That's an easy question where it's like, oh yeah, okay, give me as opposed to help me find a job, which can come across as well like, you're right, not everyone knows what to do. And I've had a lot of people just send me a blind resume too by DM, and it's like, that doesn't really help me either. So with people, it's like you got to be very specific, I think, with what you're asking for. And but even then, like, you're going to get ghosted, right? Like, I think the amount of spam on my LinkedIn, and this is just, I don't know, I'm sure it's with you as well. Like, I'm LinkedIn in-mailed about 15 times a day from vendors nonstop. So my inbox, and this is the problem with LinkedIn Messenger too, the inbox is really hard to organize. It's not like, and like you can get there's this new app called Kudo, I think it is, that helps you organize your LinkedIn inbox as a actual Outlook, which is nice. So you got to pay for that. The LinkedIn Messenger sucks. It's terrible. I lose people's messages all the time. So don't be offended sometimes if you message someone and a week later you haven't heard back. right? Because they haven't checked their message. They log in and they got 20 spam messages from, you know, who knows what. There's all sorts of scams out there too on there. It's crazy.
Rather try another way of communicating using some, that's what Rocket is it Rocket Reach? What's the name of the website that helps you find emails, company emails for people?
Like Zoom
Yeah,
info.
there's a lot of that.
And then Austin Bell text one. It'll come to me. I can't remember the name of it right now, but he's got one.
Yeah, Rocket Reach. I just Googled
Rocket
it.
Reach, yeah.
I think
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
LinkedIn's-
these tools now. You can you get free credits with a lot of them too, and like Seamless AI and Apollo, and I can name a whole bunch of them. We've used them all to find candidates before. When you got to get someone's phone number and email, you can definitely find it. And they're always surprised. How did you get my phone number? It's like, well, it's our superpower as recruiters finding you. So they're obviously going to try to do some networking. They're going to reach out to their immediate connections first, then their tertiary connections, and then maybe their third connections, or try to get intros. Besides LinkedIn, is there any other things outside of LinkedIn we can look at as well to find jobs? Because I think people are always hyper focused on LinkedIn so much, and it's not the be all end all for job search, right?
When I say, and there's always industry specific job boards. Like if you're a member, if you're in, you mentioned a CHRO client earlier, the SHRM job board is probably a good use of time because it might be any relatively easy place to find the connect. Get your application in, sure, but do the research to follow up on that application. So I would say, online perspective outside of LinkedIn, industry specific job boards can be a good use of time. I thought Monster and Career Builder had gone away. Apparently they're coming back. I don't know. So industry specific job boards for sure, but I'm a big believer of just spending as much time as you can with your network, because even LinkedIn's own data, a few months back, I saw a post that they put, I think it was 65% of jobs are still filled through referrals, which means 35% are online. So that's just a small percentage of positions filled. So network, and be specific with your online aspects of your search.
Well, and some of your first degree connections, you might be connected with them on Instagram or Facebook, or there are other places where they might be more focused, and they will find your message.
So
Consultants and vendors and service providers who interact with people in your world, in the hiring world. Make friends with executive recruiters, make friends with coaches, make friends with the consultants who tend to work with the companies where you'd love to work, and look at nonprofit, look at for-profit if you've been in nonprofit, look at other ways of finding what is aligned with who you are and what you want to do and what your skill set is. Make a dream list of companies that you'd love to work with. Read the news, find companies that are doing work that's aligned with your own values, and seek them out.
yeah, I mean, I think the mention too of the hidden job market is a true thing, right? If you think of like an iceberg, the iceberg is anything you see above the water is what's posted online, but there's the majority of the iceberg is underwater, meaning you're not seeing these jobs. And they're sometimes just posting them for compliance reasons, right? They're posting them to say we had it open, but they've already decided on the role itself. I know because we cold call most of these companies, and they already have the position filled when we call them. So it's like to find out about these hidden jobs. Let's say obviously recruiters can help. Sure, we don't get every single role though, right? Realistically, it's knowing the C-level people and the executives that are making these hiring decisions, right, and getting a bug in their ear before those things are happening. Now, they say in the market only 3% of the market is in market at any one time in terms of companies that are actually hiring. So it becomes a numbers game to a certain extent, but that's where I think that the networking aspect where it's really huge in terms of like market intelligence. People know, oh yeah, they're hiring over at this company. You should go talk to them. They haven't posted the role yet, right? That's the kind of things you got to scrape up with your networking piece. There's a lot of frustration though from a lot of job seekers. I hear it all the time. And they're saying to me, well, I've tried reaching out, no one's responding, or I apply, I get ghosted. So how do you build that resilience? What would you say to people to build that resilience? This is part of also the, the mental game, but hearing no. Not everyone's a salesperson. If you're in sales, you're used to hearing no. It's like in your DNA. But if you're someone else, that it could be very hard. So how do you deal with the constant rejection? What would you say to people about that?
I'd say collect no's, make it a goal to get 1,000 no's, and then celebrate when you hit 100 milestones. Like, yes, putting yourself out there and you did it 100 times. And if you got told a no 100 times, great. Go get another 100 no's. And, quality no's, not no from the guy who runs the bakery around the corner when you want a 6-figure job. But collect the no's, game it. Turn it into a competition with yourself. Can I get another no today? Can I get 5 more no's today? Can I have 5 more conversations? And if I get a yes, sure, it's a win. But if I get a no, great. I'm along the way to my goal of 100 more no's.
Do you want to talk about like an absolutely viral LinkedIn post? Somebody that actively will do that, Sarah, will get 1 million likes at the end of their job search. I always say,
Yeah,
don't
that's show
post
up
about
on
your
lots
job
of
search
things.
on LinkedIn. But I think that's really unique. I love that
I
idea.
love that. I love that. I'm a fan of keeping a brag file. Maybe it's old reviews, maybe it's emails where you have compliments, and when you're feeling down, read it. Remind yourself of how great people thought you were.
And in that brag file contains the secret sauce to your resume and your LinkedIn profile, because there might be something that you've forgotten that you put on there. Like, if you're getting 1,700 no's, at some point there should have been a yes in there, and something's probably wrong with the resume. Look in that brag file, because you're going to see the problems you solved, the projects you managed, the processes you improved, the dollars you saved, all the kudos. And if you don't have one, create one, because that's a really good way to pull out your career accomplishments.
And each one of those kudos, that brag file, each thing in there can be expanded into a case study, can be a post, can be a video, can be a topic of a podcast. It's material that you can use creatively to leverage for your own interests.
And how about some things that we shouldn't be doing? I would definitely call out one thing I see often is people coming on LinkedIn complaining and giving the woe is me story. And it's like, they'll get 1,000 likes, maybe there'll be a viral post, but they never get a job out of that. So if anything, I think it kind of can hurt your brand if that you're, you know, giving the sob story. I mean, I don't know. It can get really bad. Some of these posts are pretty sad.
They're sad, and so,
No, they're heartbreaking. I was just going to say, hey, keep the negativity out of the comments as well.
and if you really want to put that pen to paper or pen to keyboard, that pen to keyboard doesn't make sense. Fingers to keyboard. Open up a Word document and type your post, and then click the X and get rid of it. That way, you've at least gotten out of your system. Don't put that online, because you're going to go viral and you're going to get 100 of sympathy likes, but the hiring manager and the recruiter that ultimately will read that are going to think twice about having that conversation. Because if you're going to complain about something as personal as the job search, are you going to go online and complain when something doesn't go right at the job?
There's an idea of oversharing, I think. And what I try to tell everybody is, listen, that's what your friends and family are for, right? Like having your network of people around you that you can support you and help you. And that's what they're for there. And go to them and complain to them every day if you need to. That's what they're there for, right? But online, if you post it, it's there forever. And I think that could follow you, and you don't want people to see the time that you trashed your former employer, said negative things about your job search, or complained about how unfair everybody is or the world is, right? It seems, I don't know, it can give a negative connotation to the hiring manager for sure about, as you said, right? Like are they going to talk about us like that when they leave here too? I don't know.
I love Sarah's idea, though, about gamifying the process. I think you can extrapolate it to, let's see if I can find one company that is, possibly hiring that doesn't post their jobs. I think I read that like 50% of companies don't post job openings online. They don't have the budgets for them. So maybe it's someone that maybe the hiring manager puts it in their socials, or maybe they just do it through word of mouth. I think the recruiter staff, I think text hire, but there's a large percentage of jobs that don't get sourced through recruiters. So trying to see if you can identify those kind of companies, that's you're doing your research, but you're also keeping score and gamifying it a bit.
And if you feel like you have an urge to go online and complain, if you feel you have an urge to post something that negative, I'd encourage you to stop and think about what's the root cause of that urge. What need are you trying to meet? And figure out whether it's just venting. You have friends and family for that. Keep it offline. If it's you, well, obviously you need a job, but if you're trying to get attention, if you're trying to be seen, there is a different way to do that. So if you are realizing, okay, well, I really want to post this because I want people to see me and I am upset that I'm not being seen for what I can bring to the table, then think about, okay, what can I bring to the table? Post about what you can bring to the table, not about not being seen about what you could bring to the table.
Recruiters and hiring managers love subject matter expertise and whatever they're looking for. And if you can go on LinkedIn and demonstrate why you're a good CHRO, why you're a good director of engineering, why you're a good VP of sales, that is what attracts attention from people looking to hire talent.
And those actions are more likely to get people to say yes when you do reach out to them through those conversations.
So about that, what would you say would be a fair amount of thought leadership posts, or, for the average person doesn't want to be an influencer? I mean, what would you say to an executive who's like, I want to build a personal brand. I'm not trying to be a mega influencer. I just want to be able to post what I'm about. I was talking to someone today. They're saying they're posting about their values and their leadership style and so on. How often should they be posting? What should be sort of their LinkedIn strategy for someone that doesn't want to be on here, living on here like we are, right?
Get the social media. To me, you comment at least 4 times, 4 10-minute slots a day, maybe take Fridays off. And then once you get comfortable with the commenting, I like posting maybe once, twice a week. More than that can be tough. But I love to hear the opinions of others on it.
I agree with that. In fact, I teach a LinkedIn course for my clients in my career coaching program. In fact, I'm doing one after this call. And spoiler alert, if you're on here, you warm up LinkedIn with comments and then gradually grow your posting. Start with 1 a week and get used to that. And I always tell them, get used to the fact that when you start, you're going to get like 2 likes, and I'm probably going to be one of them. LinkedIn wants to see you doing it constantly before it starts spreading that out. Even now, it doesn't spread out as much as it used to. But once or twice a week, once you get used to it, I think it's fine. As long as it's the right content.
It could be sharing an article that aligns with your industry or your role and then adding your 2 cents at the top. You don't have to become Shakespeare with this.
Stop using AI to compose your post, though.
Yeah, that's a good one. Don't use AI. I have like an AI spidey sense now. When I read a post or read anything online, I can be like, that's AI. Oh, they used AI there. The adjectives they use, then like the wording, it's also the dash, but you can make it so it doesn't have the dash anymore, right? But
Big dash guy, though.
I use the dash before AI used the dash, so you're right. And now I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't use my dash because people are going to think I wrote it with AI, but I like using the dash. I'm like,
I was having that same conversation with my wife the other day, and she goes, well, why don't you just have the confidence to use the dash, Franklin? I'm like, okay, that's the kick I needed.
That's right. Go with that.
I got a couple of questions from the audience here. One was, how many of the jobs that are posted online are actually real? And then the second question is, what do you think of company assessments and tools, or what can you do when you're asked to be doing an assessment? Like they have these testings now. Like Amazon has a really structured process. I think it's all done with AI. There's testing and quizzes and math problems and disc testing and everything else. How do you approach the assessment piece?
If you want the job, you got to do it. That's the thing. But I had a client, they wanted a one-way video interview followed by an assessment. And they were also interviewing with a competitor who did not offer any of that. Guess who? They were like, no, I'm not doing all that. I'm going to go to your competitor and work there. So Amazon's always going to attract who they want. Microsoft, Google, these big companies are going to get who they want, and they're going to have hoops for you to jump through. At the same time, small businesses and mid-sized businesses need to understand they might be missing on top talent for making them jump through so many hoops. So, but if you really want to work at a company and they have an assessment, do it to the best of your ability. As far as how many jobs are posted online, I don't know. How many of them are real? Who knows? I've read so many studies about how many there are, like 2% are real, 10% are like, no one knows. The researchers don't know. It's just,
Yeah, and little companies don't have the budget to be posting fake jobs. Big
Yeah.
companies need to do.
that's a good point. And big companies will do it for pipeline purposes. And maybe it's not a position, they got somebody in mind internal, but they're going to have to backfill somebody and they want to create a pipeline. Is that a fake post? In my recruiting background mind, I say, no, I think that's real. There's a legitimate chance you could get hired there. But I could see the flip side of someone saying, no, that's BS.
Regardless, by the time the post has gone through all the hoops to get approved and go up, you are competing against a group of people that are pre-qualified or pre-vetted. And so you're on your back foot trying to compete with those people. So getting the conversations going so that someone will call you and go, hey, the posting's coming out on Tuesday. That just puts you at an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, in the recruiting world, we call those like the evergreen job postings, right? They're always up. Sometimes it's to build like a pool of candidates. For sure, some companies do that, but it's very expensive to post jobs too now. Like LinkedIn, it could be several $1,000s. So in general, they don't really want to be doing that just for, for image purposes or whatnot. It's pretty expensive. So I'd say they're probably wanting to hire at some point, but maybe they're doing it for compliance reasons. That's for why I would say the majority are being posted. If they are, they have to show that there was a fair process.
It's I read somewhere that the Google for Jobs has the highest ROI in terms of big job board success, probably because they curate from company websites. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, we don't post jobs with us, so we save our money on that. But a lot of companies will do that. They'll post jobs all over, and I mean, there's different tools. Like, I don't know. I've avoided that. For us, we do headhunting with our company, so it's a targeted list of 100 people we go after. Right? It's a little bit different. Of course, we'll look at our network first as well. That's why we're always having intro calls with people to get in there. But other companies do it differently, right? Other companies can afford to, I have another question here. What do you do when you see a job posting that shows, 200 people have applied or so on? And I guess it's kind of getting psyched out when he sees the number of applications that it shows on the LinkedIn. But I've heard that number is BS. I don't know. Like I've heard it's not accurate, that the number of applications is not accurate. So I don't know.
It used to be the number of people that clicked apply.
Right. Right.
But I think that's changed. I do think it's somewhat accurate. If the job is an easy apply LinkedIn job versus if it redirects you to a company website to apply.
Because there's drop off, right? If someone goes to another website, like I know it's happened to me, it drives me to another website and I see the job application. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to retype my whole resume all over again. What a nightmare. I'm not doing this application. It's going to take half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
They want you in their proprietary ATS system, and the parser never works for me. I don't know.
No.
Especially in Workday, because Workday is the worst when it comes to but what to do if there's 200? I mean, if you don't know anybody there, you can't get referred in there, and you want to work there, and the only way you can potentially have a chance is to apply, then you have to apply. Measure your expectations. That's the biggest thing. If you're going up against 200 people that have already applied, well, recruiters probably got a pretty good candidate list out of those 200 plus whoever was on the front end. Just keep your expectations in check as to what the reality of the situation is.
And
Especially if the posting's been out a couple of days. They sort of have what they need for that first round of class.
And keep in mind that if it's showing that a lot of people have already clicked apply, it means that there's competition for the job, which is not new information. There's competition for all the jobs. It's just you get to see a number that may or may not be real. So disregard it. Do what you would do if you did not see that number.
Another question here about our thoughts on quick apply, and when you're looking at all the jobs online, how would you rank which ones are the highest chance of you getting them?
The ones that are posted the earliest.
The freshest jobs?
I follow a recruiter on Substack who recommends responding to 2 quick applies a week because it keeps signaling. It's one of the signals you could send to the algorithms to help you show up higher in search. I thought that was interesting.
Who knows how the algorithm works? Everyone has an idea of like the secret sauce that they put in there.
Well, yeah. And then there's the algorithm for your feed, and then there's the algorithm for recruiters.
It's true. I mean, one exercise we ask candidates to do is see where they come up in the search in LinkedIn Recruiter. Like ask someone to look for you. Like if I try to look for you in LinkedIn, do I find you? Or on the 10th or 20th page of results, right? And that's kind of where working on your profile can kind of rank you higher, right? Having premium helps, I think, as well a little bit.
Mhm.
Other question here, they're asking about quick apply. They asked about, how do you track? Is there any tools for tracking all your applications or anything you're using as a sort of grid to manage your day-to-day job search? What do you recommend to do to sort of manage all that? I mean, in LinkedIn, you can see which jobs you've applied to, right?
It does. I also recommend you keep a spreadsheet, Google Sheet, spreadsheet. Just if you do it, apply and keep the link to the position or copy and paste it and save it into a folder. Cause once it's down, it's gotten a lot harder to try to find it, but a simple spreadsheet works really, really well.
All right. And final thoughts, because I think some of us has to get going. Final thoughts on if you had one tip to give to job seekers right now that have had a very long job search, what would you tell them to sort of get their mind in the game?
Take 1 minute, go breathe real air, close your eyes, breathe, and forcibly tell yourself to have hope.
And give yourself the grace of needing a break. If you need a break, because everyone needs a break from everything, take the break.
Mine's a little bit less positive, but I think it's important. Take that minute to figure out what is working and what's not. Where in the process are things breaking down so that you could focus your efforts in.
Sounds good. Well, this week we all have an opportunity to take a break. In Canada, we have Canada Day tomorrow. And in the US, we have the 4th of July coming up. So wishing everyone some happy holidays and thanking everyone for their time and, wish everyone luck on their job search. We hope today gave you some help. Thanks again to our panel, Sarah, Virginia, and Franklin. Appreciate you so much being here today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, guys.
See y'all.
Bye.